Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fresh Outlook. Just chatting before the start of our segment here. Well, meeting in Paris are negotiators from 195 countries. They've agreed upon a preliminary deal aimed at reducing global carbon emissions and limiting global warming. It's considered a significant but far from conclusive step in the multinational effort to keep climate change in check. I am joined by Judith Stark, philosophy professor who focuses on ethics and global climate change from Seton Hall University, Dr. Paul Gilman, Chief Sustainability Officer from Covanta Energy, and Graham Smith, CEO of Open Energy. And I will start with you, Graham. Is anything really going to come out of this climate change conference? Should they be focusing on perhaps terrorism instead? Or do you feel, like some of our presidential candidates, that climate change is as big a threat as terrorism? Tough question to start with.
Thank you.
I know it's good to think, it's instant, it's TV.
Let me break it down. There are 25,000 government delegates working on putting together a treaty around how to restrict the temperature rise to 2%. I think any policy around carbon emissions reduction is going to be achieved by channeling more money into those technologies that are going to propel us towards a low carbon future. So giving a clear direction is key. There are technologies out there that work. Solar is one of those technologies. And it is currently, last year, for example, more solar power generation was installed than any other type of electricity power generation. So it's working, it's taking us there. It's coming from the private sector, privately built, privately funded. That's American jobs being generated. So we need to think, coming out of Paris, we want the direction so that we can channel more money into building more solar and meeting those emissions targets.
Doctor, tell me what Covanta is doing to try to help make a cleaner, greener planet and lessen our global footprint.
We're a company that helps communities, municipalities with their, materials management, but some might call it their waste disposal. We like to think that there is no real such thing as waste. Everything is a resource, and it's about using it as well as you can. So we do elements of recycling. We help communities, when they're done recycling, dispose of waste. And in our case, we take that waste and recover the energy from it, make electricity and steam for use by those communities.
Judith, it seems, at least little by little, that we are making a difference. You're seeing more and more hybrids on the road. You're seeing more and more plug-ins on the road. I think Tesla is a company that you can point to that says, hey, they build a beautiful car, a stylish car, a very expensive car, but a green car.
Right.
But are we replacing one polluting source with another? It's not non-polluting to create energy, correct?
Well, I mean, some of the renewables are not creating these kinds of emissions that we see that the carbon fuels certainly are.
So the cars are definitely worse.
Well, yes, of course. But you know, when you asked me that question, Logan, I thought my father saw the beginning of the internal combustion engine. We, I think on this panel, will see the end of it in the 21st century. What will replace it? Electric vehicles, better public transportation, using electric sources in order to do that. And this will be the transformation, I think, of the transportation system that simply has to happen. So it's not just less carbon. I think what I've been reading about lately is deep decarbonization, which means really a restructuring of the entire way we think about resources and how we use them. And even if you just stay with the public and the public education, which is what I'm certainly interested in, we can already reduce our carbon footprint by 15% simply by conservation measures. Don't have to change anything, just conservation.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right.
Graham, tell me a little bit about Open Energy, and I think you're doing some of the things that Judith alluded to already, right?
Absolutely. We're a private company, and our role is we're an online alternative lender, and we provide loans to stimulate the growth of commercial and industrial solar in the US.
So you're like an angel investor in green energy?
Almost.
Okay.
We're basically a non-bank. So we provide loans for those folks who are building in Hackensack, the Meadowlands just down the road that are building plants. So we provide a loan. So just as you might go and buy a house, you don't even think about getting a mortgage. But for in the commercial sector in the US, there isn't enough finance readily available. So we're out in the market providing the equivalent to a solar mortgage to help people build their solar plants.
Are you a nonprofit? Is it profitable to invest in these renewable energy sources? Are the people who are lending from you, borrowing from you, paying back? How's that working out, and where do you get your capital from?
Absolutely, great question. I'm proud to say we're very definitely profitable. It's about creating a structure to attract investors, and that's how we're going to meet these carbon emissions targets. And you say, why invest in solar? Why would you invest in any asset class? What are you looking for? If you're looking for stability, oil and gas, what's synonymous with volatility recently? So if you're looking for stability on a long-term basis, low risk with an attractive yield, solar represents that. And our goal is to demonstrate that and bring in the capital, the insurance money, the long-term money, the billions that are needed that US solar can take, and that will help us build an energy independent country generating clean, low carbon emissions.
Dr. Gilman, it seems like you've got an endless supply of garbage to work with. So repurposing garbage and turning it into energy seems like a brilliant idea. You might get a loan from Graham here, or maybe already have.
We were talking before the show. But that waste that we use for fuel, if it goes to a landfill, it creates the even more potent greenhouse gas of methane than the CO2 that we hear so much about all the time. So we actually, by avoiding that methane generation that the landfills create, can produce electricity and reduce greenhouse gases at the same time. So we like to think that sustainable waste management, reduce, reuse, recycle, and recover energy is the key to one of those very doable steps for bringing climate change a little bit better under control.
Okay, now I'm going to give a hard question to Judith, where I'll put on my hat of climate change denier. You know what, Judith? We've had the coldest winter I can remember. We've had the warmest fall I can remember. Climates do change from time to time. This isn't man doing it. If we're going to be competitive in this next century, we need to keep doing what we're doing and not let the Chinese who don't care about their environment get ahead of us.
Well, I don't think it's business as usual. It can't be. And from what I read about from the scientific reports, the 99% of the meteorologists, the climatologists around the world agree that the climate is changing in ways that has not happened in the last 800,000 years. You can look at core samples, ice samples to see that, and that we have the technology in order to address that, and that the preponderance of that change is based on the use of carbon fuels. That's exactly what's happening. So, as far as I'm concerned, the scientific debate is over. We have the technology to address this. What's lacking is the political will, but I hope that political will be sparked in Paris.
All right. Graham, can we advance our environment and make these changes without China going along? Because it seems like they'll talk the talk, they just don't walk the walk. Meanwhile, people are covering their faces there with their scarves because they can't breathe, they're choking on the smog.
I read just this morning, actually, that the coal consumption in China has gone down 8% this year. And the reality is that they've realized that solar and wind, for that matter, are viable mass sources of electricity generation. So to the point, is it against China? This is a case where there's an opportunity to generate attractive returns and create jobs. China gets it. So that's why they're likely to build almost more solar this year than the rest of the world combined, because they realize the opportunity within the country to do that. And there is I do believe that the market's more efficient in the US. So it's a case of let's create more jobs, let's create some really attractive returns, and see what we can do.
Doctor, do you have any hopes or visions for this climate summit? Do you think anything's going to come out of it that is practicable, workable?
I think in reality, it'll be a stepwise process. Will they accomplish everything they hope to accomplish going in? Perhaps. But even if they don't, they will make steps forward, and there will be more steps to follow. I think the consensus that there is a problem to be dealt with and that there are existing technologies to deal with it is too real. What they're grappling with now is who's going to pay? Will the developing countries assist in making that reduction, and who will help them pay? And those are tough questions, but they are questions that incrementally we're getting answers to.
You know, and I'm guardedly optimistic about this, Logan, because for the first time since Copenhagen meeting, countries were asked to come in with their own targets. There wasn't going to be something imposed from the larger body, but they were asked to come in already prepared, not just with the targets, but how they're going to achieve them.
What about our disposable culture, where we throw away water bottles? I probably go through 6 water bottles a day, where crunch it up, throw it in the backseat of my car, dump it along the highway. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But we have between baby diapers and disposable drinking bottles, that alone is a huge mess that we're polluting our planet with, right?
Logan, you know, if we were more like Europe, in the US and in the developing countries, in our recycling, in our energy recovery, and in reducing the waste going to landfills making methane, we would reduce greenhouse gases on the order of doubling nuclear power plant capacity in the world. That's sustainable waste management making a very serious contribution. That's why I say there are things we can do, we know we can do, that can make a difference, that aren't that painful.
Okay. And give it the last minute.
I'd just like to say, I stand up for the US. That I think the innovation that this country has always demonstrated is how America is going to drive a solution, a climate solution, and from where I'm sitting, this country has been great at financing the biggest changes we've seen over the years, and particularly now is that opportunity to structure and get behind particularly these technologies that exist, that are unquestionable and proven already, and that we have a chance to roll out at huge scale. So I think it's believing that this country has everything it needs, the structures in place, and we need to usher that in from very much a private perspective now.
And if you look back from the 1970s to today, we've made phenomenal progress. The cars are less polluting, the smokestacks are less polluting, people are less polluting, so there is promise
And I'd say, Logan, the young people get it.
Yep.
You know, my students, they are completely on board with this. They don't understand what's taking the rest of the country to figure this out.
Exactly. Judith Stark from Seton Hall University, thank you for joining us. Dr. Paul Gilman from Covanta Energy, thanks so much. And Graham Smith from Open Energy, thanks so much. I got to talk to you about a loan later. I've got an idea. When we come back, it is time for our lightning round. More on the week's interesting stories after this.